afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is Nicholas Art signing in for Carnies Cafe, and today we're going to talk about the deplorable state of journalism. What is going on out there, media people? Come on, get your acts together.
Hey everyone, this is Adam
hitting the pause button after this.
from CarniesCafe.com, and as Nicholas said, today we're going to be talking about the state of auto journalism. If you want to tweet us questions, we're at Carnies Cafe. We're doing this as a Google Hangout Live, and just let us know. And this is Carnies Cafe Podcast 41. We've been slacking off and doing official podcasts. You've probably been hearing Aaron yap for a while. We've been checking in with his Quick Step podcast.
I've been doing special edition podcasts mostly for automotive car reviews, stuff like that. So yeah. By the way, this is Aaron, CarniesCafe.com. You all know who I am. You're tired of hearing my voice by now. Although I am the sexiest of the three.
Well,
sexy mother.
Well, I mean, both of you kind of look like.
I'm not backlit, see, so I've got this aura.
Yeah, so basically I wanted to do this podcast today, or video with everyone, because we get a lot of questions about how do I get started as an auto journalist, how do I do what you do, and a lot of these people are typically in jobs that they don't like, and they're trying to figure out how they can maybe write professionally full-time and transition to doing that. And usually what I tell people is that I don't know if you've been keeping track of not just auto journalism and what's happening in the auto industry with media, but journalism in general is on a downward trend. And newspapers are having a lot of trouble keeping afloat, trying to figure out new models to keep active. A lot of people that we know, they had full-time jobs at newspapers in an automotive division, and then they got laid off, and they said you can have a job back as a freelancer, but we can't pay you full-time salaries. And that's really common nowadays. So I'm always surprised when people think there's a huge, a huge amount of money in this, when the reality is that the market is shrinking. Well, there are a lot more niche sites and websites out there about, cars, motorsports, motorcycles, things like that. Even more specific, maybe something like what Aaron does, where it's large, tractor trailer trucks and the green industry around that. There's a lot more smaller sites out there, but they're not necessarily, the people behind them aren't necessarily making full-time livings. Even some of the larger traffic sites that, from people that we talk with and people that we see at events and things like that, I'm always surprised when I think people, obviously the amount of traffic they have, they must be able to have advertisers and be doing this full-time, but it's still a part-time thing for them, like it is for the three of us.
Adam, I have no idea what you're talking about. I mean, I have 3 Rolls-Royce in my driveway, a Bentley for Wednesdays, and of course a few Ferraris behind I sometimes take out. I really have no idea what you're talking about. Please, can you spare a penny or two? Thank you. I can't make rent again this month.
Yeah, just so you guys know, I had to save up to buy this book, and and that's saving.
Oh, nice.
Literally had to put it on my wish list and wait.
I get a lot of books at the library, or try to. So.
Well, you can't find this book at the library. It's a little too specific, and it's British.
I have to, by the way. Since we are talking about not making a living and everything, and it is hard to actually make a living writing, I did get this book sent out to me, and it's called The Arsenal of Democracy by A.J. Bain, and it's a great book. It talks about the history, World War I through World War II, and how the automotive industry was part of it, or was actually caught into that, and mostly about Ford. So if you're a Ford buff, you've got to read this. You'll like it. if you're a history buff, you'll like it, and I think it's a perfect way of talking about it today on the 4th of July. You know what?
Yeah,
That's going to be
and
my
happy
article
4th
for
of
today.
July
Thank
if
you.
you're in the U.S.
Well, one
Or
of our
elsewhere.
beefs, one of the reasons we got together with Carnies Cafe is because we were a little bit tired of what we were seeing happening with automotive journalism as a whole, um, especially in the large publications, and that's kind of what we wanted to talk about today, right? Rather than show off how poor we are.
Yeah. Well, even
And
even at large publications, there have been significant cuts recently. We're
yes,
recording this on July 4th. A couple of weeks ago, Automobile Magazine shut down their main
yeah,
Detroit
this is another
office,
illustration. There are no
and
holidays in
they
freelancing.
fired Gene Jennings, who was
Nope.
the editor there, and a bunch of staff people, and they got in a guy from Motor Trend, because the same publishing company that owns Motor Trend owns Automobile and Hot Rod and a few other magazines, I think. And they're completely are reworking how they're doing Automobile and all these other magazines. They're trying to shift more online. The problem with that is that still online ad revenue does not pay as well as print, and
Right.
these publishing companies are still having a hard time figuring out how we deal with that. And they're trying to do things like make more do YouTube videos and put a lot of production effort into that. But from video companies that I've talked with, a lot of times they say YouTube videos are great, but on a whole, they said if you have a direct advertiser that's paying you, say, 100,000 a month to do these videos, which some of these channels get, they said that does not pay. If you're only three
Yeah.
guys, that's pretty good money. But he said if you're like have a staff of like 100 people, that's not good enough for you to stay afloat. And that's one of the problems
I, th-
that
I
people are finding.
I think that's you have to take a really global view first of all. I mean, to understand what's happening in the world of journalism, and you also have to see what's happening in the world of TV and radio. I think Aaron just swallowed something very strange. He has that grin scotched on his face right now. It's really eerily bizarre. But I was talking to a few people these past weeks, and we were talking about how journalism evolved in the 70s when you had, think about the Watergate story, for instance, real journalists going out there fighting for the truth. If you have Netflix, I think you can actually look at House of Cards, and it'll give you an idea of what these modern journalists, I'm talking about mainstream media journalists, what they have to go through. Back then, you had a week or a month to write a story, so you could really triple check your facts and really work on your eyes and on your dots and your commas and things like that. But these days, a story has to be out in less than an hour, and you need to not only search for the story, do the
Sometimes
research,
shorter than
make sure
that.
you've got all the facts. Yeah, sometimes even shorter than that. And so now add to it the fact that you're right, a lot of newspapers now are shutting down. They're streamlining their operations. People just don't have the time. Plus, inflation keeps on going up, obviously. I mean, all of these are boiling up to give us the situation that we have today where you don't have a lot of good journalism anymore, except for a few places. I mean, I still read The Atlantic and God forbid, Al Jazeera, because I found in Al Jazeera all the old journalists that I really liked at the Washington Post, at the Wall Street Journal, the few that I liked, the Wall Street Journal, they all work there, or they're all right there. And so there are a few places, but the shift from this, well-paid job in the 70s where you had advertisers paying to this online world where you need to, get a few cents in the hope that people will click on the link is very tough for a lot of people. And you see how the radio world has completely changed now. There are no more good radios out there. There are only 2 or 3 companies holding all the radio stations in the U.S. Same thing with TV. And all of this is crumbling down. And so all of a sudden now you have a lot of journalists like us, independent or freelancers, and of course you've got a lot of these old guys who are starting to join our ranks now. And on top of it, you have a bunch of enthusiasts who say, hey, I want to write too. So it's sort of the far west right now.
Well, it's funny because
Wow, sorry.
it's okay. It's
No,
funny
that's
because we have a paradigm. What you're describing is we have a paradigm shift happening, where the old publications, the old guard of building a publication, a magazine, newspaper, whatever, and publishing it every day, every month, or every week, every month, whatever, and having people that work for you to write the stories for it, to take the photographs that appear in it, all of that stuff. Those are dying off. We're seeing them consolidate. We're seeing them disappear. We're seeing them become rebadges of themselves, where you have a magazine that is in the interior of which is almost exactly the same as another magazine. It just has a different cover on it. Where the publisher's basically just trying to keep the volume up and keep the costs down. You're seeing more and more of this, and you're seeing, in my experience, going to events, going to things where you see other automotive journalists, there are very, very few who are working full-time for a specific publication. Nearly all of us that go have freelance or something similar on our business cards or on our name badge. We are not working for somebody specifically. We're working often for several outlets. And automotive manufacturers have realized this and are putting a lot more effort that I've seen towards reaching out to the people who will write about their thing in 2 or 3 places instead of just one. They want that. They're seeing that more value in that. And on the other hand, what we're also seeing is we're seeing every Tom, Dick, and Harry who can build a $12 web blog suddenly becoming an automotive journalist. They assume that makes them a journalist.
And I should say
it's kind of a fine line. You have to be very careful.
Well, there's a big difference.
Sorry, Adam, but I was just because I have a friend who is a trained reporter, but he is not a journalist. He's a reporter. A reporter is very, very different from a journalist.
Very different.
I told him, I said, the big difference between you and I is I'm a journalist. I'm allowed to not only dig for some information, but also to pontificate on it. I can give an opinion when I write, and a reporter doesn't do that.
Yeah, I should say there's a difference between what I would consider somebody who's like a news writer, where basically you're just doing news stories, and a lot of people are hired just to do that. So the majority of articles we do, where it's just a manufacturer wants this covered, we write a little thing about it, there's a video about it. A journalist, I would say, goes out there, they try and do really good research, they try and fact check, they get sources. Like, I have a source for racing. He's a guy who's a lawyer. He's put together big racing events in the U.S. He's has a lot of good connections. He knows a lot of stuff. And if I have questions, I usually call him and check with him. Like, what's the state of NASCAR or IndyCar? And he'll tell me the dish because he's clued into that.
Hey,
the problem is
Aaron,
that
notice that little stinky guy? He hasn't shared that contact with us, right? Huh.
I don't call him that much. He's usually very busy. But
can I interrupt you real quick, Adam?
Yeah, sure.
One thing that I would also like to point out that I think is important to this discussion is that automotive journalism, unlike a lot of other journalistic enterprises or journalistic industries, has a lot of perks. There are a lot of things that you're paid that aren't necessarily getting paid money. Is Nicholas drinking out of a toilet paper roll?
Anyway, I think it's a styrofoam.
It's my teacup.
Hold your cup up upside. Yeah, hold your cup up so that when you have it flat drinking out of it, there's a black dot on the bottom. Makes it look like a toilet paper roll. So anyway.
Oh, it's
what I was saying was
cups.
There's a lot of what do you say, contention, I guess, in the industry now about especially now that there are freelancers like ourselves who are becoming bigger names. We're becoming known, and we're being invited to press junkets and things like that. There's a contention over whether or not things should be, how much disclosure there is. If I get flown by an automaker to, exotic locales and get shown a car and spend time in a car and get wined and dined and everything while I'm there, I am not specifically obligated to tell, by law, I'm not specifically obligated to tell people that all of that was provided for me to see this new car. And in a lot of publications, online and traditional, there is no disclosure of that. They don't mention it offhand in a very sideline note.
Which is a shame.
People might have noticed.
It's a shame because you should do it. You should do it. It's always good to say at the end. And there's also another problem because a lot of times for instance, I have a lot of ETFs and I don't always know if the company is part of my ETF portfolio. So a lot of times you don't even know. I mean, like as far as investment, I have a lot of ETFs, and I don't know at one point or another that company might be part of the portfolio.
I personally don't understand ETFs.
I'm talking about when you are directly paid in a side way for something.
Oh yeah,
You should,
absolutely.
I try to do that. If you've read my car reviews on Carnies Cafe, you'll see at the bottom there's always a test limitations and so forth.
Well, recently,
blurb.
Oh, you write car news? You write car reviews on Carnies Cafe? I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you should go check them out. Well, recently
the latest one published
I did a review for Discovery Channel, and I said for a show called Chrome Underground, and at the end of the article, I put this paragraph. Let me pull it up. Editor's note: in exchange for getting an advance copy of the first episode of Chrome Underground before it aired, I was asked to write a review about the show by Discovery Channel. However, I've not received monetary compensation for this review and do not have any special affiliation or relationship with Discovery Channel or the production company behind Chrome Underground. I do not know Yusuf Johnson or Antonio Brunet personally or have heard about Motorium before writing this review of the TV show. So that just lets people know, hey, like, they asked me to write this. There's no... that's really the only benefit I got here. I had an advance copy, that's it.
Yeah, and I think that's...
So you know what,
the reason I think that's important is because there's a lot of writers that don't do that. It's commonly referred to in slang as the wheels section of your newspaper, and that's where they have somebody who writes about cars in the local newspaper. Usually it's not an automotive journalist, it's one of their staff reporters. But it's a person who gets to drive vehicles or goes to the events that the newspaper is invited to that are car related. And those sections almost never give any disclosure of what was given. And it turns out in a lot of publications they're actually the moneymaker because most people don't know this, but small newspapers, their number one income is usually from advertisements from local businesses, and almost all those advertisements, if you've read any local newspaper, are automotive dealerships. Quite often,
or
the
like
Wheels
tire stores,
is
things
sponsored
like that.
by the dealership association. A lot of people don't know that. That's who's literally paying for it because they want it placed in a specific part of the newspaper to highlight the advertising happening in that part of the newspaper. So it's, there's a lot of that kind of thing that goes on, and most people don't realize it. And one of the like I said, one of the reasons we started Carnies Cafe was that we're kind of tired of seeing that.
You do need to,
it's kind of a
go ahead. Think about that. There's a lot of other journalism fields that have the same thing, where for like celebrity journalists, if you're doing a new movie release that's come out, they also invite you to a press junket. They put you in like a 4- or 5-star hotel. They pay for dinner for maybe 1 or 2 days or the whole day. They feed you, and then you get to go interview a celebrity, and it's basically the same thing. They're trying to wine and dine you and get you like, this is really cool. So you write something good about the movie, or however you interview the celebrities is positive and not negative. or the movie stars, I guess.
I think we actually have a really good example of the difference between a journalist and a reporter, and it was actually it's Aaron's article on Carnies Cafe. Free piston engine is like a shaker light for your hybrid, and it caught my attention for many reasons. It's the fact that when I see free, I'm always, warning signs go off, red lights go off. What do they mean free? Are they going to give me a free piston? Obviously not, right? So it's basically Toyota's idea of using a concept that's already been around for the past 4 years, and it's a piston that acts directly onto an electric motor, if you wish. I'm just really simplifying it, but in a tube like this, in a cylinder like this, the piston goes back and forth and actuates an electric motor in here. So I thought it was very interesting because a reporter would have said, Toyota has free piston engine, this is how it works, it's fantastic, boom, call it a day, and that's it, it's plastered all over the internet. But a journalist will do diligence. For one thing, they'll look around and say, well, what's free about it so far? And that was my first reaction. Well, is it the free piston engine, or is it a free piston, or is it free? Or and you do stay in there. What would you say? Yeah, called the free piston engine generator the complete. No, wait, I think I lost it, but it's somewhere in here.
No,
You say there's
in the
nothing
middle.
free about the piston, right? Okay, it's not free of pistons, but the piston is free of other objects, specifically the camshaft, which is exactly what you should have been doing, which is exactly what a reporter doesn't do and a journalist does. But this also highlights another thing that journalists and reporters are faced with every day of their lives. We get inundated with a lot of PR pitches from either companies directly or their PR companies. And of course, it's pitched in such a way that it's supposed to grab your attention. It's supposed to highlight what they want to highlight and sort of hide what they don't want to be shown. In this case, it's the free piston engine. So the idea is to make you think of the electric motor more than the piston. Where in fact, you know what it is. I mean, if you boil this story down to a single sentence, it's a simplification of a hybrid system. It just fits in a cylinder, and that's really great. And by the way, yes, it comes from Toyota, which makes a heck of a lot of sense. So I think this is a pretty good idea. This will give you a good idea what the differences are between a reporter who would have just said, free piston engine from Toyota, and a journalist who will explain it a little bit more and let you walk away at least with a good sense of what's happening and formulate your own questions in your own mind about it.
Well,
now, we do need to be totally honest.
Boy, I'm shutting you guys up well today.
Here on Carnies Cafe that are kind of that are more along the lines of they sent us a PR and it was catchy, and so we just went ahead and ran with it. Usually, when you see those on Carnies Cafe, though, you'll see them first. They'll be very short because we don't tend to do long stories on that sort of thing. And usually, they show up in one of our small story sections. So they'll show up as a breaking news or a video. Which is basically what those sections are for. They're for very quick content. It's for reading a couple hundred words or seeing a video. That's literally what those sections were created for. But you will not see that sort of thing in editorial or reviews.
Yeah, one of the problems I'd have to say though is that obviously, ideally for every article, it would be good to do what Nicholas is saying, right? Read it, think about it, go read other material about how modern pistons work, how modern engines work. If you're not aware, which I'd imagine if you're an auto journalist, you should have some idea of how an engine is put together.
Oh, I don't know about that. Sometimes you hear some very strange questions from these mainstream guys, and it's like, really?
I was contacted by a upstart website that was really trying to, get off the ground, and they had pretty good financial backing. And they said, we need someone to do really in-depth articles every week or 2 weeks, and we'd possibly like you to do it. So they had this list of articles that they wanted me to do, and I pitched some things. I said, this is maybe what I could spend time researching. So I did most expensive gas prices around the world. Now, a lot of times they do the cheapest gas prices around the world, and people don't really care about most expensive. So I thought, oh, this would be a good contrast because everyone does least expensive, and countries like Saudi Arabia and Venezuela are always on these lists. And I said one of the things they don't do, though, is that they just do cheapest. They don't do it by GDP. So
Mm-hmm.
I said I'll spend
Yes,
time
good idea.
calculating, how much does it take to fill up a tank in these countries on average, and then I'll go and look at the GDP. Now, that sounds easy, but this took me it took me a week and a half. I didn't work 8 hours a day, but I'm really shitty at math because I'm a writer. And, it took me a long time to think about how to do this. Like, I had to double check because I was like, this is like, I don't want this to be wrong when it gets released. And I showed it to the editor, and they were really, really excited. And then it just turned out they realized the amount of time that it took to do this article, and then it really had no SEO benefit for them. It wasn't like a catchy title. It wasn't something where they knew like once they release it, it would get a ton of hits. It'd probably be something over time. So it just became a thing of like they didn't ever want to do these long articles because they realized it was not worth their resources. Like they're like, we'd like to pay you to do this, but we don't think we can. That was basically the end of that. And I've had
Yeah.
other situations where there was another company that editor that was they wanted to do car news stories just in the DC Baltimore metro area, and I would just cover this area, and then they had people in different parts of the country and even in Canada that would do like Toronto and just do coverage of any events or do special things in each area, and it just didn't work out because I think they came to the same conclusion, which was that it's not worth it to pay people to do that. Like there's no social media benefit or SEO benefit for some of these articles that we've compiled. So
Well, it's funny because you kind of walk a line. Like a good example would be on Carnies Cafe. I used to very regularly, and now just whenever I have time because they take a lot of time. I was doing Coffee and a Concept, and these are concept cars, and it's for me. I really get into them, so I enjoy it. And but it takes 2 or 3 hours to create one of these articles, and
right.
so I have to budget my time because I have to do things that pay me money as well. And anyway, what these articles are is they are evergreen content. They're good forever, right? It doesn't matter when you publish them, and also they're very interesting and in depth. But on the other hand, they have very low SEO and social media and so forth value. They do not drive a lot of traffic in the
They
short
do drive
term,
traffic over time,
but they do drive traffic over time.
Right.
So you have to budget when you want to do them and how you want to do it. That's it. So, there's a lot of that sort of thing when you're doing this, especially when you own the publication you're working on, like we do with Carnies Cafe. You have to balance all of these things, and you have to decide because a lot of the freelance publications that I read or have read, they make one of two mistakes. Either they go so far off the deep end towards, throwing out those outlandish titles and having stories that have all kinds of social tie-ins and lots of mention of whatever's the latest on with Kim Kardashian or whoever and they do all
Kim
that
who?
sort of thing to try to pump themselves up. And then the other direction where they go totally purist and they try to be completely pure and all about cars and blah blah blah. Both of those ideas fail eventually. If you go all the way to one or all the way to the other, you're going to fail. What you have to do is come somewhere in the middle.
Nicholas,
you have the
a lot
outlandish
of
content once in a while, but not always.
Yeah,
and you have the
a lot
purist
of
content once in a while, but not always.
Well, one of my frustrations with, I think, social media, even though a lot of Nicholas's articles, mostly on Carnies Cafe, he can get like hundreds of shares for some of his articles, and I still can't figure out why. But a lot of times, even if you get a ton of social media shares in a day, the next day it's basically gone. Or even if you consider how many like shares you had, the amount of clicks that were generated from that usually are so low. I'm always surprised, but it's something to be aware of.
You know, I think
Well,
that's a really good point you
yeah.
guys are bringing in here, and on Tesla Ready, we're working on that right now. Is how to make a story a little bit more of an evergreen story. So we have the opposite problem on Tesla Ready, where it's not a news site per se. It's a lifestyle site for for Tesla owners. So the idea is to actually have pertinent stories where people will come back even a few days later, or people will still see it a few days later and read it. So my problem there is exactly the opposite of the problem that I have with Carnies Cafe is on Carnies Cafe, my SEO needs to be very relevant and as good of a timing as I can do it. But on Tesla Ready, it needs to be something that's very far-reaching. And both of these concepts for me are so alien because I come more from a traditional literature world where you just write what you know about and how.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm a storyteller. I'm not an SEO guru at all. So my problems are so different on both of these platforms, and it's insane. And I think it's something that we can all learn is how to make a very pertinent story, a great SEO catching story, and also evergreen in the long run. And obviously, I'm Mediterranean. I speak with my hands.
Well, it's one of the many things that you have to that has to be balanced in automotive journalism. And one of the things that I've noticed, in fact, I had a friend tell me this outright. He wrote for print journalism for a very long time, and now he's semi-retired and he's writing part-time. He's in the tech field. He's not in automotive, but he's writing part-time for online publications, and he's finding that he's getting rejected a lot because he's writing under the assumption that what he's writing gets published next month, right? Because he's writing as if he was writing for a print publication,
Yeah,
and and it's a very different
can't do
type of
that.
writing. It's very, very different. You have to, with traditional print writing, normally you write on a very, very long time scale. What you're doing that's due maybe Friday isn't actually going to make publication until Monday, and it won't actually hit shelves for people to read it until the following Monday. So you might be 3 weeks ahead of yourself. And you have to think in that way. Whereas online, you have to think in terms of minutes. I'm going to write this. It's going to publish, like I did the article this morning on Torque News
Yeah.
about most American cars because it's a very July 4th style article. And so I pumped it out this morning to publish
It's
today.
probably only going to be good for 2 days, and then after
Yeah,
that,
it'll probably
no
run
more
for 2
traffic.
days, and then it'll largely get ignored. And you have to think about those things when you're writing online. You also have to think about things like keywords and like you were talking about. You have to think about keywords and search engine optimization stuff. Whereas in print, none of that comes into play. You can use anything out of the dictionary you want. You can play around with your thesaurus all day, whatever. Whereas on the internet, like if you read one of my car review articles, you'll notice I tend to use the same description of the car over and over. There's a reason for that. I use the year, make, and model over and over in the article rather than only once at the beginning, like in a print publication.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
sometimes
that's for SEO. That's to get the search engine to notice it.
sometimes I will get complaints that
Yeah.
there's certain things in my articles that, like, the flow doesn't make sense, or someone will say, this is wrong, and I usually reply and say, no, it was meant to be written like that because I'm not that was specifically written just for Google, and it pisses me off that I have to do that, but I say, look, that's the reality of what people do for online publications now.
Even
And
the
also,
occasional title with a
another thing. Wait,
misspelling
hold on, Aaron.
is on
I think another
purpose.
thing we can ask Aaron. Hold on. I think another thing we
Yes.
can ask when people complain about those things and go, well, I'm going to challenge you to do one thing. Why don't you start writing stories and within 20 minutes have perfect flow, perfect punctuation, perfect grammar, make perfect sense, and hit all this SEO points at the same time. If you can do it, then you should be doing it and not me. But so far, I don't see a lot of people doing that. So hey,
That is actually a
it's
challenge
incredible when I
I
hear
have
things like
for
that.
someone when they usually ask me, well, how do I become an auto journalist or auto writer? And then I say, okay, take a press release from any automaker, and you can go find all the media sites. And I say, get a timer. I said, I want you to do this in less than 40 minutes. Said, basically research it, let me know what you think, have a little opinion about it. You know, I say all these things, you know, and then I have all these other requirements, and they're like, "Wow, that's really hard." And I said, "Yeah," and I said, you know, I'll probably read it once or twice, but I said then if it would just get published. There's no like me fact checking that as an editor anymore.
Yeah, it's very rare. I do fact check a few things on Carnies Cafe, but they have to be pretty outlandish for me to bother going to
That's
check.
true. Yeah.
And if it seems like it's probably legitimate, it's probably going to get published because there just isn't time, and there isn't money in it. So I can't
just don't have time.
spend all day.
Don't have the time.
And that's
unless wait, hold on. Unless you, dear listeners and readers, start paying us. I need about $150,000 to start with. So if you can do that for me, and I know Adam is a little bit more, maybe 250. Aaron, I think you'll settle for what, 180. If you can do that, then yes, hell, you know what? We'll write one article a month, and it'll be so perfect. It'll make your English teacher blush from having said all the horrible things they said when you were a kid. How about that?
Yeah. Well, I guess to wrap up.
Yeah, I think we should wrap up. That's what I was going to mention.
Like I said,
yeah,
there's a difference between
so I think
journalists,
what can we
writers,
take
and reporters.
away from this? So yeah,
and if you
what can we take away from this? I mean, what is the difference between? So what can we take away from all of this? We've been talking about a lot of things, but I'd like you guys to sum it up. Well, Aaron, if you can do it in 2-3 sentences. I know Adam will, but I'm asking Aaron to do it now.
To summarize, what I'm going to say is the automotive journals themselves, as well as the industry of automotive journalism, has changed in a big way just in the last 5 years. And a lot of people are having a very hard time adjusting to that and don't understand how many nuances there are involved in it. And so that everybody knows, Kourtney Kardashian is 4'11".
Who's that now?
I'm shocked you even noticed.
Adam. Adam, what's your take on all of this?
Yahoo News feed.
I would say I would agree with Aaron. I mean, a lot of consumers and even gearheads and car enthusiasts just don't understand how much things have changed just in the last 2 years, in the last year, with online and social media. And I think even automakers and publications are still trying to grapple with that. And like I said, there's a big difference between journalists, reporters, and writers. And a lot of what's happening now, people are complaining, oh, there's not good journalism. And the reality is that if you want that, you have to pay for it. And a lot of these publications that have tried to move to going what's called paywalls, where you have to pay every month to get it, it hasn't worked out. And if you're somebody who's watching this or listening to this right now, and you've thought about, oh, I want to, get Cars Review, I want to do this full time. To be honest with you, it'd be really hard to come in today, fresh, new, and be able to do it full time. You should have some other part-time job making money on the internet or something. Like I do some SEO and web consulting. Nicholas is a great life coach, helping people through problems. Aaron does a lot of different writing outside of automotive, and he has a lot of other writing gigs and things like that. And that's just the way it is. It's just
just for perspective. I write about currently a little over maybe 60% of my income is automotive writing, and that took about 4 years to get to that point. So. Right. That should give everybody a pretty good idea. Yeah. On the same token, Tim Estradal, who writes for Carnies Cafe once in a while, Tundra Headquarters and so forth, Tim is in about the same boat. He's a trained journalist, went to school for it.
Okay, good.
And he's done the same.
We're wrapping it up. Yeah, I mean, it's it's tough for everyone.
What are your thoughts, Nicholas?
So basically, what I'm taking away from it is that we basically are witnessing the crumbling of a system that doesn't work. The economy, the economic system is crumbling everywhere, and we can see that it's not sustainable. You can't work the way we used to in the 70s and the 80s, and even less in the 90s. So we're seeing this shift, this transition. And right now, if you look around, a lot of people, a lot of younger kids are living at home, which is fine because they have these micro businesses around their lives. They might have one them 60 to 75% of their income, but all of the rest of those things are giving them the rest of their income, and it might be big, it might be small, it doesn't really matter. But we're starting to tasking, and which is very interesting, which also throws the whole marketing world into a big loop because they don't know how to reach out to people anymore. Now they have to start seeing people as mini hubs instead of just focusing on to buy their products and refer their products. So it's a big transition. We're in the middle of a big turmoil right now, and the game is completely new. There are no rules, and we're sort of making it up as we go along. And I think it's an exciting time to be alive. But right now we have to wrap it up because we are going to be on a call in about 1 minute, and my bladder after 3 teacups, teapots is pretty darn full right now. So
let me
Lazard signing out for Carnies Cafe. Hope you enjoyed today's talk, and then we'll talk a little bit more next time about the rest.
Yep.
Time is time.
And this, Aaron, you want to sign off?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
This is Aaron from CarniesCafe.com, and I will say that there are a handful of companies out there that do get this new paradigm. So one of them is a large representative for a major auto manufacturer and approached me about writing about something that had nothing to do with cars the other day. So that's interesting. There are some out there that are finally getting it. So for Carnies Cafe, this has been Aaron. Talk to you again soon.
And this is Adam for CarniesCafe.com. If you want to follow us on Twitter, we're at Carnies Cafe. If you want to tweet me, I'm at Adam Yamato, Yamada. And let me just say in closing, if you have questions, feel free to email me at adam@carniescafe.com. And we've actually avoided doing a lot of things which could have made Carnies Cafe more profitable but we've wanted to try and keep our journalistic independence, and that's why we haven't moved toward doing some things like native advertising. So just keep that in mind. And you guys have a great day, and hope you enjoyed this podcast.
Yeah, and you know what? By the way, as you've noticed, I am the whip master.
Oh boy!
All right, well that's all
for the last word. Quick.
And everybody,
come on!
You can PayPal me at.
Yeah, send me $200,000. Adam at CarniesCafe.com.
Yeah. Mine is electricnick@nickzard.com for PayPal. Okay, don't hesitate. Blessings on this wonderful 4th of July, and don't eat too many sausages.
Yeah,
happy
up 4th of July,
the grease level in your arteries, and you won't be able to think of new things to invent.
And drink at least 2 full glasses of water before you go to bed tonight, so you don't wake up with a hangover.
All right.
Later.
Well, see ya.